Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Man, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. A new one dropped this morning at 6 a.m. Check out the latest edition with Adam Kaplan and this man right here. He is Geoff Mosher from InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can check out during the offseason every Monday and Thursday. It drops at 6 a.m., and Geoff Mosher joins me right now for another edition of Football at 4. You know, Moshe, the Eagles announced today, I just asked you the other day, when does Eagles training camp begin? They answered the question for me today. Did you
I forced that. I told them Mike Gill has been asking me, and I don't have an answer for this guy, so would you just put it out there? And so they did.
Right, I was saying, did you put the pressure on them because I asked you, hey, when does training camp start? July 26th is when training camp will open. August the 7th will be the open practice at Lincoln Financial Field. Those tickets go on sale tomorrow, and single game tickets go on sale tomorrow. So we now have a date, and we're in there, man. We're within 2 months from training camp opening.
Yep, we are. It's exciting. I'm just excited in general that football, we'll start to talk about football again here this week. We'll have the OTAs and kind of, finally get to move on from all the front office stuff that has taken the headlines and deservedly so, for the last week or two. But yeah, there's going to be some good stuff this week because of OTAs, and then because of the redone schedule and the way the Eagles kind of went about making mandatory minicamp not mandatory so that the media doesn't have to be there the whole time. But there will be one day that media is allowed this week and kind of get an idea of what's going on with the players. And then it's going to be a long break, right? Then it's going to be, 4 to 5 weeks until that July 20th, maybe even longer than that, actually. 8 weeks until training camp starts. So we'll have to figure out a way to fill the time, Mike. I think we'll figure it out, though.
We will do so. I know that one of the things this weekend, you saw Devonta Smith had his celebrity softball game in which Jalen Hurts hit a walk-off homer. But apparently A.J. Brown won the home run derby, and I guess some of the chatter was, who knew that A.J. Brown was actually drafted in the baseball draft?
Not surprising. I mean, a lot of guys in the NFL were drafted in the baseball draft. Some of them weren't even, college baseball players, but you get drafted on the fact, because there are so many rounds in the baseball draft, you've seen guys get drafted in the lower rounds just because they're very athletic, and baseball teams figure if, this doesn't work out for football, maybe we'll have the rights to him for a year or something like that. So I think Michael Vick was once drafted in the MLB draft as well. I know DeSean Jackson was drafted. It's really not. Riley Cooper was a Phillies draft pick at one point. So, it's not that surprising.
Now, did you hear the DeSean Jackson audio this past weekend? Well, I don't know what was he on? What was the show that he was on?
It's called the I Am Athlete podcast. It's hosted by Brandon Marshall, the former NFL wide receiver, and LaShawn McCoy is a big part of it too. I think Chad Ochocinco was at one point part of it. I don't know if he still is, but yeah.
So Jackson was essentially getting ready to tell a story about McNabb, and I feel like McCoy was leading him down another path that I wanted to actually hear that story more than the story that he actually ended up telling, which, Jackson acted like the story that he told was all this, this very damning story about McNabb, which doesn't put McNabb in the greatest light, but I was like, I feel like McCoy there's a story there that McCoy needs to let Jackson tell.
It sure felt that way, and that's a great teaser and a good reason why you would want to go listen to the podcast, and probably why they didn't put the full story. But if you just watch what everybody's kind of seen circulating on social media, you can tell LaShawn is like the instigator. I mean, DeSean is he's interrupting DeSean half the time just to tell him to tell more. Tell him about that time. Tell him about the party he made you pay an entry fee to get into. So, yeah, I'm sure that there are some pretty interesting stories from back in the day on that.
Yeah, it was almost, he was like, oh, tell him about what happened. And he's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. And I mean, he was basically saying that McNabb, I guess DeSean Jackson was patting himself on the back that he was the first player ever to be nominated for the Pro Bowl at 2 separate positions. He was a receiver and a punt returner. And I guess McNabb had said he didn't deserve to be the first player ever to be there twice. And I guess
Correct.
Jackson kind of took that at like, why would you say that? Like, why would you not say, hey, congratulations, instead of congratulating me, you said I didn't deserve it.
Right. And it's again, it's awesome. It's great for the Twitter crowd. It's great for the social media crowd. It's another story, of course, that has one side and lacks any content or context, I should say. Maybe Donovan said, I think he's great, but so-and-so receiver from the 90s who also was a punt returner should have been the first. Like, I have no idea. It doesn't surprise me that Donovan poo-pooed it. I just remember from covering the team, it's not like those two had the greatest relationship to begin with.
Who's that? Jackson and McNabb?
Yeah, I don't think Donovan and DeSean were like the tightest of the tight, and they were not. So I'm not saying they were enemies.
It doesn't seem that McCoy liked them all that much either.
Listen, how many guys have come out and said that they didn't love Donovan as a teammate, or that they liked him as a player, but that there were times where Donovan could be this, that, or the other? It's certainly not the first guys to come out and say anything anti-Donovan-ish.
No. Well, on the flip side, I don't think you're getting that same kind of vibe from the current quarterback. I mean, from Friday OTAs, I know that the media sometimes over-tweets about some of the things that were happening, but we had like full stat lines on Jalen Hurts. He looked great. He was 10 of 11. He completed 3 passes over 40 yards. But yeah. I don't think you're ever going to hear anybody like, man, at the end of when he's done playing here, that he wasn't one of the more likable guys.
No, probably not. They're different personalities. Donovan had like a goofiness about him that I think that not everybody liked all the time, or maybe just thought he was a little strange. I know, some also thought he was kind of aloof at times. Jalen is so no nonsense and businesslike, and I think it rubs off really well on this young ascending team. But let's be fair, like Donovan, I don't remember a whole lot of Donovan criticisms for the first 3 or 4 years of his career. It wasn't really until T.O. came along, and then after that Donovan started to get knocked by teammates, and not that much, just a little bit. So my theory is when you play long enough in this game, people are going to knock you. So it's not like at some point it'll come for Jalen Hurts if he's a successful quarterback and plays X amount of years in this. People knock Aaron Rodgers, right? Greg Jennings is constantly bashing Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. So it happens. It's just, we're not all – you're not going to get 100% adoration all the time. But for this team right now and this locker room, it's working really well, and Jalen Hurts is setting a really good example.
Geoff Mosher, Football at 4. I know that Nick Sirianni did a little one-on-one with Sal Pal over the weekend. And, one of the things he was asked about with Jalen Hurts was in terms of his progress and improvement. He really seemed to hammer home his mechanics, just getting the fundamentals in his mechanics. And not sure if, did you get a chance to see him at all Friday? Were you out there?
I did not see that.
Right.
No.
So there was a lot of good reports that he looked like a more confident, had a much different look about him. And I'm wondering if he came back and does have something noticeably different about the way that he threw the football. And now he's in his 3rd year now. Like, he just him talking seemed to be a much more – he's always had this confidence about him, but he definitely had felt different just listening to him. But from apparently, even Sirianni has noticed that the guy has come in a much improved player.
Yeah, and I thought last year in training camp, he really improved as camp went on and got better and played well in camp to the point where you could start to see him kind of understanding the role, the assignments, taking over the team. But, I put less on training camp and OTAs years ago, and now I put even less on it, to be honest with you, because you're talking about hour and a half, mostly 7-on-7s, very few team drills anymore, very few pads. Even in training camp, it's not as real gets. Some of the stuff that I think Jalen really needs to show his most improvement on is that live action when the color of the opposing jersey is in your face and what kind of instincts and reactions you have. And a lot of that is not very well simulated, I would say, in practice environments. I have no doubt about Jalen Hurts' ability to be able to throw the ball 10 to 20 to 30 yards to an open receiver in a 7-on-7. He's already shown that. He's good at that. He's certainly capable of being a starting quarterback in the NFL for what he can do offensively. The question is, can he be a really good player in the NFL, a franchise quarterback, the leader of a team that can win a Super Bowl? And that question will never be answered in a OTA or a training camp. I kind of learned my lesson on that years and years and years ago, not to put too much into that stuff. And I, don't do it now. I know some people will still chart numbers and, go to one-on-one. Like one-on-ones can be the biggest receiver cornerback one-on-ones can be the biggest fool's gold there is because it's set up for the receiver to win every single time.
Yeah.
So it's,
Here is, by the way, this is what Sirianni had to say about Hurts. Take a listen.
Jalen Hurts in the offseason, worked out in California. What have you seen different from Jalen Hurts now that he's out on the practice field specifically?
He's really worked his fundamentals. That's what he went out there to do. And we talk about fundamentals all the time. And we have done some 7-on-7s these last couple days. And what I see is a crisper ball, the accuracy I've been very pleased with. And so you can just see him taking strides every single day with his accuracy because of the fundamentals that he has with his feet and his upper body.
So off of what he said there, when you watch him last year, did you feel like that was something he needed to work on? His footwork, his fundamentals. Like, hey, this guy's a little fundamental. He needs a little tweaking.
Yeah, I feel like he has good fundamentals at times. It's not like he has bad fundamentals. It's just that when he struggles, when he's facing a better than average defense, when he faced a defense that came after him and got him on the move and got him off his spot, is when you saw him try to make throws without his feet squarely on the ground. There were times where he kind of thought he was, buying himself time by scrambling and then trying to throw deep, but then that's where you would see some of the arm strength fade away because he was throwing on the move, even if he was away from the traffic. He doesn't have like the Justin Herbert type of arm where you can move him off his spot a couple of feet and he still can just wing it in there. That's not Jalen Hurts' game, which is fine because, others don't do it too. You just have to know that that's not your throw at that time. And then, as I mentioned, there were other times where he left the pocket because he felt like there was pressure, even though when you watch the tape, that pressure wasn't what he thought it was. And again, that's an inner feeling of your internal clock, and sometimes the internal clock was sped up.
Is that guy's not able to get open? Doesn't have good enough weapons?
I mean, I'm sure there's examples of that, but there are countless examples of guys who were open that he just was not seeing also because he was already trying to get away from his spot thinking that there was pressure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see once he gets teamed up here with A.J. Brown and how much they kind of rely on Brown. Is he going to be one of those guys that's a high volume amount of, throws? Is he going to get 148 targets, where they didn't really have that guy last year that just scooped up all the targets?
Yeah, it's funny because Quentin, Michael, and Jason Avant last week or the week before when they were diagnosing the offense, I think it was last week, said, you know what? With this offense, it should be like 8-8-8 as far as targets for Brown, Goddard, and Devontae Smith. And everybody else, if you get one or two, you consider yourself lucky, because I think Jason made the point. Ideally, you want Jalen Hurts to be something like 24 of 30, right? Which is like completing over 70% of your passes or something close to that. And then if you take 24 completions and you're playing good defense, 8-8-8. There you go. That's your three main receivers. And then anybody else, you know what? If you don't get a target, don't complain. That's the way the offense should be.
Now, what about Goddard, though?
That's 8-8-8. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goddard.
Okay. Sorry. I thought you were just saying the two guys got 8, those two.
No. That's only 16. There's room. Yeah, 8-8-8. The top three guys in your offense.
Yeah, all right, that's good enough for me. I'll take that. Devonta Smith, I'm really intrigued at what kind of step he takes. I don't want to say he certainly wasn't a disappointment last year, but he wasn't. I didn't expect it to be Justin Jefferson, but if you get a guy who's getting about 900 yards and his numbers at the end of the day, that's not a difference-making player. It's a nice player to have, but I'm interested to see if he takes that big jump.
Well, I think what'll help him, I think, is the fact that it doesn't have to be the X boundary, X receiver that A.J. Brown will be. Devontae Smith will be the Z receiver, which means he won't see as much press coverage. You can also move him around. You can get creative with him. What might hurt him, though, is that, all the stats and the charts showed that Hurts's ability to see the right side of the field intermediary was not his best area, I believe. That was not always where, either that or I forget, there was one side of the field or the middle of the field where he just didn't look to or didn't have a high completion percentage. So you're going to want to make sure that Devontae Smith and him have a good synchronicity. They can see each other, and that you're putting him in spots where Jalen likes to throw the ball. All
right. Well, Jalen Hurts, by the way, game-winning homer yesterday in the softball game. So he's got the clutch gene.
That's right. They have the clutch gene.
And A.J. Brown beat Micah Parsons in the home run derby. And said that, hey, this is for the division right here.
I can't even believe Micah Parsons was invited to the home run derby.
There was a lot of
it's a little sleeping with the enemy right there.
There was a lot of non-Eagles players. I think Jalen Waddle was there.
Well, that makes sense because of the Alabama connection. I mean, we can deal with that.
Yeah.
But, how did Micah Parsons just pop in?
I don't know,
there?
but he was the captain of the other team.
Oh, man. They were trying to make the other team the enemy. That's what they were doing.
Well, it was so it was the celebrity softball. There was a lot of players. I mean, Dallas Goedert was there.
Yep.
Avonte Maddox. I wonder, because Jalen Reagor was there, I wonder what the reception was when he got announced to the plate.
That's probably not
Boston
good,
Scott,
unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, Boston Scott, Reagor. There's a handful of Eagles players there. Brandon Graham. So if Brandon Graham can out there play softball, that's another good sign.
That is a good sign. I don't know how, and this is probably one of those things that we'll talk about a lot as we get more information from OTAs and then deeper into the summer. But it's great to be deep on the D-line. But when we went back to 2017, you talked about everybody kind of having their role and understanding their role, right? I'm fascinated by some of the roles that some guys are going to have to play that are probably not excited or enthused about it. And Brandon Graham could be one. Derek Barnett could be another. Milton Williams, who showed pretty good, production as a rookie. They've got 8 guys who can play. They're not all great, but they can play. And you're usually only rushing the passer with 4, sometimes 5 you're blitzing. So there's going to be 3 or 4 guys on this D-line that it's like, when do you figure out when and how to use them? And if Brandon Graham isn't a starter, he's a really expensive backup player. So it's just going to be really fascinating to see how it all kind of comes together.
Good point. Geoff Mosher, Football at 4. The latest Inside the Birds podcast dropped this morning at 6 a.m. And Adam and I discussed a little bit on Friday about the new role for Julian Lurie. I guess that's a bulk of the podcast. But, I always worry about just, hey, son, here's the football team.
Well, here's the thing, Mike, and I made this point last week and again in the one that dropped this morning. As fans or media, whatever, you can't control who's going to be the owner, right? Whoever buys the team or whoever inherits the team. So you can sit here and be like, oh, I can't believe Julian's going to someday be the owner or he's getting fast-tracked. But I think you would want a situation where if the child of the owner is going to take over at some point, that the child at least puts the work in and learns the industry as opposed to just having it handed to him one day. So he went through the 2-year NFL rotational program that's designed to get, people like Julian Lurie up to speed, learn about the different departments of the NFL. And then he's going to start off with a job here in the Eagles front office. I think it's called business and football strategy director or something like that. So at least he is getting some experience and some know-how from a professional level before the franchise becomes his, where we've seen cases, and I don't know this for a fact, so I don't want to speak out of line, but I don't know that Cal McNair went through that when Bob McNair, passed away, and then all of a sudden Cal became the owner of the Texans. So I'm not sure he went through all those jobs to learn how to be an NFL owner. So if you're going to choose something, at least Julian Lurie is getting the right education. What Adam and I say is, you just hope that this is all educational and that right now he's not trying to exert any influence on or having Jeffrey help Julian exert influence on personnel. And that is open to sort of speculation because we know that Julian is close with Alec Hallaby, who just got promoted to AGM. And it is a little bit you can look at it skeptically that the two guys who got promoted to assistant general manager, which makes them number 2 under Howie Roseman, neither of them are personnel guys. So you got to kind of go down the list of names before you come up with your top personnel man under Howie Roseman. And I guess that would be Alan Wolking and Charles Walls, who are the director of player personnels. So in between them are these two guys, Hallaby and John Ferrari, who have great titles but are not personnel people.
What's
so that
Hunt?
To me
is
a little unnerving.
What about Hunt?
Brandon Hunt is director of scouting, and again, that's kind of a created title. I haven't seen, maybe one or two other teams have it, but typically on an NFL team, and just like the Eagles last year with Cunningham and Brown, director of player personnel was the highest ranking under Andy Weidel. So it went Howie, Andy, and then Ian Cunningham and Brandon Brown were number 3 there. And you felt good about that because Andy Weidel was a personnel guy. You know what I'm saying? The quote-unquote football guy. And then, of course, Ian and Brandon were too. Now you've got Howie, and underneath Howie, your 2 AGMs are not personnel guys, and then there really is no Andy Weidel who's even there. So I guess the two guys who were the directors of player personnel, they were not in that position last year. So they're kind of new to that.
The question of concern from the fans, I guess, would be, hey, are they going to start relying on analytics more?
Well, I mean, you would because Alec Hallaby, that's his job. That's all he's done since he's been with the Eagles. He is an analytics presider over the analytics department, and now he has the second highest ranking title to Howie Roseman. But I will say he's been here for a while. He's had a high title. The Eagles have always prioritized analytics, and if you look at their last 2 drafts and last 2 off seasons, they have done a nice job, in my opinion, of balancing the analytics with the tape. All right, so I don't think that analytics is less involved. They just did a good job of balancing it. So what you hope going forward is that even with this new structure and more power given to analytics people, that the right balance is still being struck going forward. That'll be we can't be angry in advance about it. We have to see how it works out.
All right, Geoff Mosher, training camp July 26th. You going to get any Margate Beach time between now and then?
You know it, brother. I'll be down there. I'll see you down there.
I was looking for you this weekend.
I would like to have gotten out this weekend, but had a few things going on.
Okay, yeah, I needed another old guy to help me in the cornhole game. I was whipping these young kids, and I would have felt better if I had like an old guy partner instead of like.
Listen, I'm practicing. My wife got me this nice like Penn State cornhers set. I got it set up in the backyard.
We have my girlfriend's father made us. Hers is East Carolina, where she went, and mine's West Virginia. And my mother bought the bags, so we have the ECU bags
that's
and the
cool.
West Virginia bags.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now, when we hang out this summer at the shore, you're not going to try to get me to drink those keto beers, right? Or keto beers, whatever diet
drink
beers.
Whatever you want, dude.
All right, cool. I appreciate that.
Bring your own, dude. Don't drink mine.
But you always feel awkward. Someone's offering you this, and
you're lucky I offered you one
to make him feel good. I know. I'm just messing out with you.
All right, man. Take care.
Take care.
Geoff Mosher, Inside the Birds, InsideTheBirds.com. The podcast drops this morning. It was out. You can go listen to the full Inside the Birds podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts.